Namaste and good evening to one and all. Welcome to Leaders Connect 360's episode LC0154. Leaders Connect 360 is CSR initiative by Bija Training and organized by the Mass Leadership. My name is Sharani and I am pursuing my BCom Honors degree at SRM. Leaders Connect 360 is started with a specific objective of inviting 1,000 plus leaders and create a million leaders. It is an online hub where every Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:15 p.m. we learn from top management leaders on Zoom Live. And once in quarter in each city, we have an offline networking meet to network, support, and grow with the leaders. That's when we call it Leaders Create More Leaders. Currently all unmuted, and we will be giving you an opportunity to speak to our guest, Ms. Nikita Yogi, independent OD, consultant and coach, and panel discussion leader, Mr. Nagarajan Ramamoorthy, manager, Straive. Before you are unmuted, let me share that we are currently live on LinkedIn and this episode LC0154 is being recorded. First time visitors may click on the WhatsApp, FB, and LinkedIn link on the chat box to get updated by joining us in creating more leaders. All in the house are requested to turn on your videos, which will help in making the episode highly interactive. And so, are we all ready to interact with our guest and panel discussion leader? Then share a thumbs up or smiley emoji in the chat box. Thank you. Before the introduction of the guest, let me also introduce Mr. Pankaj Vyas, Managing Partner, Bija Training, will interact with our guest along with the panel discussion leader, Mr. Nagarajan. I shall welcome you all. Over to you, Mr. Pankaj.
Thank you so much, Jenny. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, our guest, Ms. Nikita. And special welcome to each and everyone here taking our time and being part of it. So the agenda for the day is, as we have Ms. Nikita, so we'll be having some understanding from her experiences and let's see what we can learn from her today. So that is what. For going forward, we will have our quiz by Mr. Nellai, then we'll have our summary by Mr. Giri, and the vote of thanks will be done by Ms. Priyanka. Before we move forward, I would like to formally welcome our guest and panel discussion with official welcome video. So Arul, if you can play the welcome video for our guest of, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Arul, for the wonderful video. So, Nikita ji, welcome to our forum. And
Thank you.
so is Mr. Nagarajan, you are welcome to the forum.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, Pankaj.
yes, the topic itself is very good and different. So, let's see how we can also get some insights of managing the psychological contracts at the workplace. So, over to you, Mr. Nagaraj and Nikita, ma'am. Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you, Arul, for your welcome video. Welcome, Nikita.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And this feels very good and grand. Thank you, all of you, and welcome to today's session. I hope I do justice to the time that all of you are investing today along with me. So there is enough that is being said in the introduction, so I won't say anything much in interest of time. We will just quickly jump into our topic for today. Please allow me to share a small presentation slide here so that you have a visual to whatever I'm saying. Yeah. So
And I would like to add one thing, it's not that we made it grand by the video. Actually, it's you who have achieved this and you have done it.
all
We
right.
just tried to show it actually. So you have made it grand for yourself and for everyone,
Sure,
right?
sure. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I receive it. Thank you so much. Yeah. So we all may have heard this term, psychological contract. It's a very intriguing one, isn't it? Before I get onto the slides, I would just ask one question, and there are several leaders and managers present here. Maybe we could just raise our hands if we have experienced our colleagues, our subordinates, people working with us, if we have experienced, lack of accountability in them, or, as if we just can sense that they're not acting responsible enough, they're not living up to their commitments. How many of you have had such an experience while working? Yeah, just show me a hand. Yeah. Yeah, isn't it? And it's good enough a reason then to become curious that why does that happen? What's really going on? Yeah. So I'll just quickly share with you how this concept originated. So this term psychological contracts was coined in somewhere in 1960s, way back, yeah. But it became much popular in the 1990s. And how it came into picture is there were a few behavioral scientists who got into doing a research on what constitutes a strong work relationship versus a weak work relationships in the workplace. What really motivates, what really demotivates people. So they ran this large scale research, and they came to understand something, that there's something subtle over and above the written contract that's there between the employer and the employee when an employee joins an organization, and then they termed it as psychological contracts. So to give due credit, Chris, Dr. Ed Shine, late Dr. Ed Shine, and Dennis are the few pioneers who got into forming this theory and concept and coining it forward. And then later, many behavioral scientists took it up, and there are several research done on the subject. If you will Google up, you will have enough data. So what does psychological contract really mean is it encompasses of informal, and I will stress on the word informal because it's not in writing. It's not a part of the written contract. So informal beliefs, ambitions, needs, values, obligations, expectations of the employee, and it's basically the perceived part of it and not the actual part of it. So that's also something to register in our mind, and we will talk about this perception a little later on this conversation. But essentially it is all about how both the parties understand their relationship outside of the written contract. And to make it very simple, how it works is, if the beliefs match, if the value systems match, if the expectations are met, if the obligations are met, then the psychological contract remains intact, so to say. And if it doesn't, if either of the party, fails in any way to meet up, or, gets misaligned in some sense, then there is a breach. in the psychological contract. And so the first step is the breach, because there is certain behavior which is out of expectation or it is sudden. The breach then leads to emotional reactions. And then the emotional reactions lead to violation of the psychological contract. And gradually then it leads to the damage or the destruction that it does to the relationship. And this is how it works. In simple terms, with whatever I have read and experienced and understood, I have tried to put down what are some essential elements of a psychological contract, and it's important to register these. And the best way to understand them is to look at a contract of marriage. Though psychological contract term was coined with the research done in a workplace, but psychological contracts are applicable in every interpersonal relationship and every group relationship also. For example, marriage. In a marriage, of course, there is a written contract that both the parties have, but that written contract does not make the marriage what the marriage is. Yes. So it's the psychological contract which both the spouses understand and sort of embody and then live through it day in and day out. And that's when the relationship of marriage gets formed. So the essential characteristic of a psychological contract is it's a relationship. It's beyond a contract, so to say. It's intangible. One can't really because it's feeling based. So it's very intangible. It's not a formula. You may have heard of this equation, 2 + 2 is equal to 5. And it's coined at many places, when we do team building workshops, or we put this equation of 2 + 2 equals to 5, but it's not a correct equation in that sense. Yeah, so it doesn't make any logic. But there is an element which is when two people come together, or when few people come together, there is some element which is not known, but it makes it 5. Yeah. So that's what it hits towards. It's dynamic and it's based on perspectives. The psychological contracts are dynamic. They keep changing and it's based on perspectives. It's very human. We are all human. So everything that is human, you will see it, as a part of psychological contracts. So expectations, beliefs, ambitions, obligations, values, feelings, yeah, all of the human aspects. The anchors of any psychological contract are fairness and trust. So if there is a breach, if there is a violation, if there is a destruction or, disturbance that is happening, the immediate question that needs to arise in our mind is the trust breaking, or is the trust shaken? Or is there anything that has happened which is unfair? Or is there any kind of bias that is playing out? And it will immediately hint towards a resolution for us. So 2 anchors, fairness and trust. Yeah. Psychological contract needs balancing and realignment. And it has to be an effort from both ends. So it's like a collective regulation, and not just one party can't do anything about it. Yeah. For example, again, if there is a breach in a marriage psychological contract, if just one partner keeps working towards something, it doesn't work, right? It has to be two-way. So it has to be mutual, and a collective effort is needed. The work around maintaining psychological contract may seem very, very tedious because they are dynamic and they are based on perspective. But that very fact that they are dynamic and they're based on perspective gives us a possibility of discovering so much and exploration. And there's so much potential of making it and forming it into something. For example, a couple can, work through their psychological contracts and have a psychological contract of marriage, which is very, very different from a conservative society, what a conservative society follows, and that's a possibility. So the very fact that it is dynamic and it's based on perspective, helps it or gives it a lot of potential for stepping into the newness or change. And so these are the very important elements of psychological contract. And the last thing that I wanted to share is we may, if we have understood psychological contract, then we will understand that the contract can be relational or transactional or explicit or implicit, and all of it also. Yeah. Just to give an example, in workplace, a relational psychological contract from an employee and could be that this organization is my home. I feel like I belong here, and it's like a family to me. And so that becomes a relational psychological contract. And the moment something happens where he or she is felt or made to feel not included or not belong, there will be a breach in this psychological contract. Transactional psychological contract is I am willing to put in hard work, and I would want my hard work to be rewarded in terms of money, or maybe in terms of intangible rewards, or various kinds of rewards. And that's very transactional. It's a give and take. Explicit psychological contract is where things are made very clear, whatever I feel, whatever is my value system. So for example, an employee may make very clear to his or her manager right at the beginning of the engagement that these are some of the things which I never compromise. So I would like all interactions to be very respectful, and he's making it quite clear and explicit. He or she is making it quite clear and explicit. So it could be explicit psychological contract. And sometimes implicit psychological contracts are those needs and expectations which are very unsaid. They're very subtle. They're very covert. They're not said out in the open. So these are basically the types of psychological contracts. So in terms of, I've given you the background of what the theory and the concept is. I would like to hear, from all of us, and maybe we can do it in a question answer way, or let's make it a dialogue more than me speaking about something. And I have a few slides which I will flash on if they are related.
Yeah, thanks, Nikita Yogi, for the definition about the psychological contract. So this set the tempo for this discussion. So everyone now understand what is this psychological contract all about. So my first question is, why it's so important for both employees and employer to understand and manage it very effectively?
Why is it so important? Could you speak a bit louder?
Yeah. Why it's so important for both employee and employer to understand and manage it effectively, psychological content in workplace?
Okay. Why is it so important for employers and employee to understand? Okay. So we are human beings, and human beings have emotions, and we all feel. Whether we accept this or not, our behavior in our day-to-day life is led by feelings and needs. So if we want a employee to behave in a certain way, we have to go a little deeper to understand how does that employee feel, what is the need of that employee, and then engage in a way that those needs either get met, or there is a resolution, or there is a dialogue around it. And if there are feelings which are disrupting feelings, or which are causing hindrance, then those get resolved. Otherwise, that energy will keep playing out. So on the surface, I may notice a behavior, and I can keep telling the person, hey, I don't see you accountable. I don't see you being committed. I don't see you doing the job that I ask you to do. I see you making a lot of errors all the time. Yeah, but I am only responding to the behavior of the person. I am not making an attempt to understand what is it that this person is really missing in the workplace. What is it that this person really wants? Or is there an expectation which is not got met? Or how does the person really feel with the kind of environment and culture we are having? So hence, so if there is a need to bring change in day-to-day behavior, please get down to understanding people a little deeper. Yeah.
Okay, very well said, yeah. So if it's a breach happen, I understand how it's important to establish the psychological contact workplace. If it's a breach happen, so how definitely it will impact the employer productivity and the organization culture. So how to resolve the breach, and what is the way to correct it.
Yeah. So, like you said, it will definitely affect the productivity, and if not addressed in in the due time, and if it is prolonged, then the negative emotions will keep building, start having ripple effect. So it will spread out. So it's nice to catch it at the initial stage where you see behaviors, which are not in alignment with the expectation that each party is having. So I was able to, I'll flash the slide once again, and maybe this pictorial representation will just quickly give you all. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So this, as a flash, it just quickly tells us that what really goes on. So if there is a breach, like I said, first is in terms of behavior, there is some shift that you will start noticing. Typically, it will be avoidance, withdrawal, non-engagement, low energy, low motivation, not participating much, or, the energy levels would have dipped. So you will start noticing all of this. If not, and not everybody comes up and says what's going on inside of them. Yeah. So as a manager or a leader, if I can notice that, hey, this is unusual. This person is behaving a little differently, and this is not the energy level that from what he or she operates. I can pick it up. But if I don't pick it up, what will happen is the emotional reactions will keep building inside of them. And then it will boil down to violation. Now, when I say violation, what does it mean? People start retaliating in some ways. So you did not meet my expectation. I will not meet your expectation now. Yeah. So you did not give me this. Now I will not submit the report on time. Now I will not, so I'm just giving very simple example, but it begins this way. Now it is with one employee in the team. Yeah. If not addressed on time, this will spread out. Now this person will get into talking to 3 other people. This is happening. Yeah. And that negativity will spread. And then that group, so look at it in a form of, concentric circles increasing, and it can go up to affecting the entire culture in the organization. So there could be grapevine, there could be gossips, there could be, and all, weaved into negativity, because everybody then starts talking about their negative experiences. And you know what? And then they come down to a conclusion, yes, this organization does not care for me. Yeah.
Okay.
So the basis of, what happens when a breach happens, at a human level, we all, and there's a research behind it, at a human level, we all want to interpret that this was intentionally done, because it's very satisfying at the, at an internal level. So we all say, but there could be just external factors because of which something has happened. But we want to perceive it that the breach happened and this was intentionally done. For example, a breach like pay cutoff. Yeah.
Good example.
So immediately the emotional reaction will make us think this is intentional.
Yes.
Yeah. But if it is not addressed at this level, and if a justification is not given for it, saying, no, it is not intentional, this is what the organizational financials look like, this is the stage at where we are. If we don't do this right now, we're not going to survive 6 months down the line. Let's come together and let's solve this for ourselves. But if that's not done, then it will keep multiplying, and then there's this big bubble that it turns into. So what you're able to see here is there are 2 ways to manage this. One is you prevent it through justification, of course, after it has happened. But there is one more prevention that can happen at the time of recruitment itself. So there are certain organizations who make things very clear in terms of what are the values that we follow, what is the culture that we are having over here, what is the expectation, what is our definition of hard work. That too is, explicitly shared, because hard work is not written anywhere on the job contract, but it's a psychological expectation. And there may be difference in, and since it is perception, there may be difference in understanding of what hard work means for this. Yeah. So
Yes,
that
yes.
can happen. So as much clarity you can bring right in the beginning, the better. Yeah. And so one is very clear then at an emotional level, because otherwise when we are hit by things and then we become emotional, we add up stories. We also add up our past experiences. So I worked in an ex-organization and there was large-scale layoff that happened over there. Yeah, now I am here, and now this organization also seems to be in a financial, so to say, not a very good place, and there is some subtle things happening. But not that it is gone to that extent, but I will bring in my past experience and I will project it here and I'll say, okay, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
So one can, hold, and the manager can come and step in and, as much transparency, as much justification, as much clarity a leader or a manager can give to the team members, it, turn things around, basically. I hope it's answering the question that you asked. And
Yes, Nikita, it's clearly said how the employees have been impacted because of psychological contract breach. So my final question is, how the organization can leverage positive psychological contract to enhance employee engagement or employee retention or overall performance? How they can able to organization can leverage positive psychological contract?
how can an organization leverage on positive psychological contracts?
Yes.
So it can happen at two levels, actually, at a managerial level, at a team level also. How can a manager leverage on a positive psychological contract, that he or she notices at an employee level, and then of course at an organizational level. For example, at an organizational level, I would say, so what we study in group dynamics, that, when a group comes together, there is always some kind of dynamics. What helps the group to reach up to its fullest potential, or to forget on the negativity and step into, positivity and building, is an overarching threat or an overarching goal. So as an organization, if I am noticing that, the psychological contracts are very strong and the employees are feeling very belonged here, and they're feeling this is a great place to work, and they're feeling, very secured, and they're ready to contribute, and they're very, very motivated, and they have a lot of energy to bring in, the management can think of bringing an overarching goal in that sense, and then, sort of leverage on, whatever is the energy that's got built up. So one is, to sometimes managers, leaders also bring in a threat, not a made up one, but sometimes with the kind of uncertainty that businesses, are in today, there is always some or the other threat. But the management does not openly discuss it with the team members. If the management can start this practice of, bringing the threat to the forefront, there maybe not as raw as it is, but maybe, bring it in a way that it is understandable for people, and they can respond to it positively. It activates the energy that's got built up, with positive psychology. So sometimes the managers and leaders struggle with the threat and don't know what to do about it. But how about bringing it out in the open? How about doing inclusive decision making? And how about, making the most of the positive psychological contract that exists? And that will again in return strengthen the psychological contract. Because when you, for example, if you are practicing inclusive decision making in your team, whatever is the psychological contract, that's positive, it's only going to strengthen further, because I will feel valued, I will feel included. I will see growth opportunities because my thinking process is expanding. I am, looking into matters which were not my forte so far, but now I am gaining knowledge about it. So there's so much value add that happens. So one of the point is overarching goals or discussing overarching threats, maybe openly. Invest a lot in building an EVP or a brand. When you have a positive psychological contract, why not announce yourself as great place to work, and why not build an EVP for yourself? There could also be a culture building exercise, but all of this requires investing a lot of time and energy, but it's very, very helpful if at an organizational level one invests in this. Yeah. At a managerial level or at an individual level, if I'm able to see positive psychological contracts operating within my team members, I will make interventions where, they collaborate better. I will make interventions where, I will push them for, taking up cross roles and, learn from each other. So something like
Different
that.
domains,
And
yes.
that could be very, very helpful. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for your explanation. Yes. It's
Yeah.
really, it's really not only we need to discuss goals, we need to discuss threat as well as to the employee. It's really mind-opening thoughts. And we need to take it in the way they want to be understand. That is also very well explained. Thanks for your explanation.
Sure. Most welcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pankaj. You can take it over from.
Thank you, Nagarajan sir. Thank you so much. And thanks for Nikita ji for sharing the valuable insights. And that has really given us a new understanding of the human behavior, actually, right? Because it's all about that, okay, in simple
Yeah.
terms. Okay.
Yeah.
So, how we deal with people. So, thanks for giving it the insights. So, without taking much of the time, I would like to invite Mr. Nellai to ask a quick quiz question, and let's see what people have learned and understood from the discussion which Mr. Nagarajan and Ms. Nikita had for last 30-35 minutes. So let's see who's the lucky one who wins it today. And then the lucky winner will get an opportunity to ask a question to our guest. And post that, we will have 2 to 3 open questions from the visitors to our guest. So over to you, Mr. Nellai, for a quick quiz.
Good evening, one all. Thanks to Vijay Training for this wonderful opportunity as a quiz leader. And dear Nikita ma'am, really wonderful insights. And even I can relate with the marriage and as well as what I have a relationship
Totally,
with
isn't it? Yes.
and as well as what I had a relationship with my own the inspection service team and the entire team who is working under me in the past 2 years. Then I can understand the 2 key points on the psychological contracts are dynamic and it will change over time because we are strict with the relevant points and we thought it's a static, but so we should be adapt for the dynamic element.
So one point I'd like to make here, I'm sorry to interrupt you,
yes,
but since it is dynamic and it keeps changing, as leaders and managers, if we take up a coaching approach, or a dialogic approach, when we are conversing with our team, a lot of us get into only telling and pinpointing. Can we shift to a space where we can ask, where we can say, okay, what is it that you would like? Or what is it that you aspire to be? Having more career conversations. So taking approaches like this will help you and the team member navigate through this change very easily. So that could be helpful. I'm sorry, Nilay.
Yes, you have added a very good point. And as well as you have mentioned about that, how to improve or how to make an effective EVP, employee value proposition. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. And let's see who is the lucky winner of this week quiz. And so fastest fingers first. Let's see who writes the correct answer in the chat box. Just a minute. So Nikita ma'am mentioned about key point and what role does the trust play in the managing leveraging psychological contract in the workplace? Wow. Okay.
We are getting answers now. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the correct answer is B. The trust is essential, and because ma'am mentioned about the trust and the fairness, so that is a much most important one. Congratulations, Sukumaran Ajiz.
So
the
many
winner
congratulations
of the
to Sukumaran Ajiz ji for being the winner. Okay. So being the winner, Mr. Arul, you need to share that what is that he is going to get. Apart from that, you get a chance to ask a question to Miss Nikita. So you can unmute yourself and ask your question, Ajit ji. Over to you. Ajit ji, are you there?
Yeah, I'm able to unmute. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thank you for this wonderful session. Yeah. So I have a question like in any company, there will be three roles like the senior management, middle management, and the lower management. So what happens? There is always a conflict like when we go through all these layers, the senior management will tell something to the middle management and middle management will tell something to the lower management. And when we talk to the top management, it will be totally messed up. So how can we address this one?
Yeah. So you're saying in case of a breach of a psychological contract when you are doing this kind of a communication, or is it generic that you're saying? Generic. Okay. Yeah. So how do you address it currently?
Currently, when we get to talk to the senior management, then we know that this is what their expectation is.
Okay.
But when it comes to different channel, the message when it comes to the end, it is completely lost. And how can we address this?
So this is a very, very, very real struggle. And thank you for asking this, and especially for middle managers. And middle, I have heard this word, we are sandwiched between people who are our subordinates and people who are our seniors and at a senior leadership level. And that word sandwich seems to be very it has a negative connotation that I am troubled because I am in middle. If I shift that perception that when I am at that position where I am, I can also act as a bridge. I can also act as opening up communication channel, and taking in communication as is, and not altering. Now, what happens is with managers, leaders, and like you said, by the time it comes to down the line, it's completely messed up and nobody knows what is, because everybody alters the communication at each stage when it, flows down the line or through the hierarchy, which is unhealthy. Yeah. So practices like cross-checking, practices like, bringing clarity and summarizing and, mentioning what is rather than, giving your own interpretation. Communicating in pointers. And I'm saying something very, very basic. It may sound very stupid, but if we follow this, it will help make the communication more effective. So doing things which are, which bring as much clarity as possible to the downline. Plus, what some managers and leaders at a middle level do not do is they don't pass on the message from the ground level to the upper management because of their own authority challenge. How to say something in front of seniors, how to tell them something negative, how to, question them on something. So as if it's a crime. But that's your own perception. You can always, open up the communication channel and say, I would like to share the struggle that people at the, front facing, say, for example, people who are facing customers are facing these challenges. And, maybe this decision needs to get reviewed. And that could be one way. But that two-way communication channel has to get activated. And simplicity in communication is something which we must learn to practice rather than make it very complex.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the. Is there anyone who would like to ask question? Please feel free to unmute yourself and you can ask questions. So we can have two more questions, and then we'll move forward.
Yes, we have.
Yes, Priyanka, you can unmute yourself. And anyways, Giriji, you need to come. So Priyanka, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, we have Giri sir, the lineup.
Yeah. Okay, Giri sir, you take it up.
Yeah, thank you. This some today this meeting really connecting the employees and the employees bridge and the bridge. I think a bridge versus bridge. And, as an entrepreneur, we are suffering like anything to handle the people because the small MSME company we have no HRs and these people how to handle because the psychological behavior is was like 5 years, 10 years. Now, every day the psychology behavior is changing.
Yeah.
Even every hour can tell. So I think if you can communicate if you can give some ideas to handle the people's, isn't it a good thing as an entrepreneur to handle or HR handle? Is there any special person to handle all the employees?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of work with SMEs and long-term OD projects. Now, what happens in SMEs is these SMEs were started by forefathers, maybe, a few like a century ago, and then there is generational pass on. And now maybe the grandson is managing the business. Maybe it got started by a grandfather. Now, what happens is in these organizations, people are very strongly knitted by emotions because everybody feels like a family, everybody, and the control and the processing also happens out of emotion. There's nothing wrong in it because out of emotion, people also give a lot. So the relational psychological contract is very, very strong in SMEs. Yeah. Now, like you said, there is no proper HR in place and there are no proper processes in place. And then it leads to, a lot of chaos and conflicts when it comes to, working together, and they always keep fighting amongst themselves. So you would typically see these dynamics of, intergroup conflicts within a small enterprise or an SME. Yeah. How do you resolve this? Is set clear processes. The more the day-to-day work is put as a process, is documented, is communicated, published to everyone, everybody then starts following. So gradually, in the process of, becoming more process-oriented, the whole emotional thing starts falling off. And then there is a collective agreement to it also. Everybody is doing, so I must also do it. Yeah. So focus your energies on forming processes. Wherever you see things are not clear, document a process, publish it. If they're not able to understand, bring them together in a common forum, explain what the processes are, and, make it, that is one. Second is leaders, managers in SMEs and enterprises should stop their parental way of leading or patronizing way of leading, because while it has a positive, it also has a very strong negative aspect. So let the work relationship be more professional, and bringing in those necessary boundaries in terms of relating with people becomes helpful, because then you are so if I act like a parent, then they will expect things from me, and they will, become dependent. They would act childlike, or they would seek permission for every little thing from me. And they would always want to operate from a understanding, to get a tick mark. So all these processes are bound to happen. So if a leader shifts his approach in an enterprise, on how he or she is leading, and, do not patronize, do not act like a parent, act like a leader and one amongst them, and try to build equal relationships. That might be helpful. I hope that helps.
Great, thanks. So Priyanka, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. That's the last question for the day.
Yes, sir. Yes. Hi, ma'am. Good evening.
Hi, Priyanka.
Ma'am, actually, I want to understand about implicit. You explained about the types of this psychological contract. So implicit was there. So kindly you can help me in this.
So implicit is very unsaid. It's not expressed very clearly or overtly. If we take the example again of marriage itself, yeah. Now, in the contract of marriage, say in Indian society or in Indian context, what would be the implicit psychological contract? Could you think?
Implicit
Typical.
when in divorce cases,
Go on. If so, yes.
or when husband and wife do not understand each other.
When they do not understand, or in their day-to-day working. So if the couple is married and nowhere on the marriage contract is written that she will cook food in the house and he will go and go out and earn bread, but it's very
Stereotypes, yes.
implicit because culturally we are bound with it, and
I mean,
it's
can be
supposed to be
stereotypes.
understood rather than being said openly. Though it's not that typical anymore. It's changing but just to give an example. So in a workplace, what could be an implicit contract? Maybe y'all can think and, give me an example. In a workplace, what could be an implicit contract?
Ma'am, when a new person joins, so the clarity of the work KRA is not there. Can be because that person do not know what to do, because it happens in most.
In many organizations, they don't have a proper onboarding or training or helping the person come in. So the implicit psychological contract is you get on with the work and you learn on the job.
Yes,
And this is not said. And that poor fellow feels very disoriented and scattered all over. And for, whom should I go to when I have this problem? Whom should I go to when he doesn't know anything, he or she. Yeah. In the process, productivity dips because there is a lot of anxiety that takes over. Anyways, the person is feeling so much performance anxiety when the person is new in a workplace. Yeah. But if there is an implicit contract like this operating that you work on the go and experientially, it will leave the person in a very, so it can affect the productivity very negatively. So that's
yes. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Priyanka, and thank you, Nikita ji, for giving the insights in simple terms. Okay, so we'll invite Mr. Giri. So Giri sir, over to you for the summary of the session, and then we move forward. So over to you for the summary.
Thank you, Pankaj sir, and thank you, Arul, for this wonderful opportunity, and thank you, Nikita, for your valuable insights. Really, it's awesome content and the need of the hour. And finally, the managing, leveraging, and psychological contracts at workplace, silent killer. Now it's happening like anything, even it may be corporate or any small companies. But today's more insights from you. And you started with more slides like that, the origin of authors, really how it has emerged, and what really motivates and demotivates. Even they may be employee or employer, the written contracts this should be between the employee and the employer. There are several contracts. One is the informal beliefs and then expectations and the behavior matches. Like as a matrimony, we can compare with like that. We have to employ and employ. There should be some contract, and the misalignment should not happen. And the breaches, one of the key words I learned, the breaches. How to bridge with the breaches. Breaches means how to differentiate which is breaches and which has to bridge. Like that, you are given the value of things, and the damage of destruction is more given both sides. The damage of destruction for the employer it's immediate, but the damage of destruction for the employer is for longer life. But immediately he couldn't know that insights. More and the psychological and the relationship is intangible. As you tell, the 2 plus 2 equal to sometimes a 5. We know 2 plus 2 is 4. Sometimes we have to say that 2 plus 2 is equal to 5. That's one of the insights. And there is an element keep on changing because we are human values and feelings. As you told, very nice words of values and feelings. It's two insights. And the two anchors of psychological contract, the trust. When the trust is shaken, when the fairness shaken, everything will collapse. So one party can't do anything. So it is both party has to do all these things. And the explanation, potential, psychological contract gives lots of potential, and the 4 types of psychological behavior, the relationship and transactional, and then the explicit, implicit. Organization is like my house. First thing, this employee should know the organization is my house. If he is not included, if he is not a belongingness, then everything will collapse. That's the intangible connection and the transactional contract. When Q&A, the first question, the employee, why it's so important for an employee and the employee to understand we are human beings, the feelings and needs, as you beautifully say that word, feelings and needs. Sometimes the feelings also need, and feelings also essential, and need is also essential. Whatever it may be money or anything. So you are connected very well, and we have to go for a little deeper and engage, and we have to notice a behavior of everyone who is not accountable, and error also we have to find really missing in the workplace due to day-to-day behavior. As you correctly said, earlier we see the behavior, it will take more time, but now the day-to-day behavior. And also the question 2, it's how to handle the breaches, how to resolve the breaches. It will definitely attack the productivity, because we all know that the productive is the main thing, whatever it may be. And the negative activity, and nice to catch initially expectation each party house. And then if there is any breach, some shut can happen. It's a non-engagement, the energy level low. These are all the indication we should know. The employer have to pick up before the employee boils. This is the one warning, as you said, for the employee, because we have to know the employee behavior in very simple examples, as you told, addressed on time. Because when we miss the time, like golden hours, when we feel something heart attack happens, how we have to rush the hospital immediately. So like that, the address on time is it's very essential. Because how I am speaking now, these last 2 weeks, I am handling this problem. So really, I am very much emotionally connected with all these things.
Sure.
The negative gossips, and then group discussion will happen, because when employer miss anything simple to solve, whether we are missing all the gossips, negative gossip, the group discussion will happen against employer. So we have to address very quickly. It's we employer think that it is intentionally done, and breach like pay cut off, it is emotionally, and they will compare with the old company, as you told. They will compare with the old company. It will naturally happen. This two-way manage this, the recruitment. During recruitment itself, we have to understand that attitude of the employees, and the different understanding of hard work, how the organization leverage positive psychological contract is very utmost important. Organization level group come together and fullest potential organization psychological contract, and management leaders bring most uncertainties, and management discuss openly to employees, bring it in a way understandable, how to open practicing decision making, valued and included, and over tracking of goals. I think overlacking, I don't know.
Overarching.
Overarching goals, threads, and building a brand, and build EVP. You told a very good word, that the building a culture branding, culture building exercise is a very good terminology. The culture building exercise. Finally, the sandwich is everything the alter the communication. When the communication pass on, they will alter the communication. So my mobile, I am attending, I think it will going to shut down. Anyway, I will finish. Finally, set clear process, document, commitment, committed things, focus on energy, publish it like that. You have given some instruction. And finally, my thing I add on this co-creation, collaboration with the employees, this ownership. These three things, the triangle can connect with the even.
So I think we lost him. The battery was good. So, anyways,
managed
thanks,
to
Giri.
capture it in so much detail.
Yes,
and
yes,
very
yes,
nice.
yes. He tried to do it
Very
so
nice.
well. Thank you, Mr. Giri, for doing it. So here I would like to call upon Ms. Priyanka for the vote of thanks, as we are already reaching 7:30. Okay, so over to Priyanka for a vote of thanks, and then we'll have an official thanking video from Mr. Arul. And then Arul, you will take over for the networking. So people who would like to stay back can stay and introduce themselves for the networking meet. So over to you, Priyanka, for the vote of thanks. And thanks, Ms. Nikita, for joining in. Thank you
Most
for
welcome. Most welcome.
over to you, Ms. Priyanka.
Thank you so much, sir. So, hi, good evening, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this new chapter. For me, it's really a new chapter, and understood a lot that what is the difference leader can do for the employee and how they can make their workplace so happy. So one line I like the most, that it's there are so many lines I like the most, but one line is leaders and employee coaching approach. So it must be there in the organization, and most of them are doing also, but it is very important that coaching approach should be there. So thank you so much, ma'am. Before me sharing the next week episode, let me quickly share again the purpose of the community. For the visitors who are attending for the first time, Leaders Connect 360 is a hybrid model leadership community where every Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:15 p.m., a reputed corporate company to suggest some solutions for a real-time leadership challenges like the experience we had today, our guest, Nikita ma'am. So thank you, ma'am. Kindly follow our social media platform to get updated. It is very simple to join our community. Do click on the below social media links. It gives us an immense pleasure. Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, Nagarajan sir, for spending your valuable time in sharing their experiences.
Yes, Nagarajan ji, thank you so much for being there with me in this one.
And thank you, Giri sir, for such a gist for today's session. Guests and others in the house, kindly accept our gesture of thanking through a medium of thanking video. We request the new members and visitors to stay tuned until the end. We give an opportunity to introduce ourselves, which will help us making the network better. So thank you so much, ma'am.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Priyanka. Thank you so much. Arul, can we have a thanking video, please? Thank you, Arul. Thank you so much.